but he's especially... Well, Peter, you might be the first person on this planet that has ever shut me up for this long. Good old Heraclitus, I tell you, that wild and crazy guy.
If I came to you and I gave you $10,000 for 20% of the company.
Deal. Yeah. So, is that a verbal?
Younger than us, sorry to say, Joseph.
What, younger than 20?
Joe, we're just trying to help you because clearly you've lost control of the conversation.
You know what? With all due respect, I never had control of the situation. Doesn't mean I'm gone. Kill me makes you stronger.
Look at you! You are insane!
How did I do that?
You're insane.
Well, welcome everybody. How is your Wednesday evening? Is it Wednesday? It is Wednesday. How is your Wednesday evening? It is time for another episode of the show. I'm enjoying, this is both my warm-up and my cool down music. It's my warm up, and also, if a guest goes on too long, we basically play them off the stage. Just kidding, Greg. We won't do that with you at all. I hope you guys have had an amazing week. We live in crazy, crazy times, but at least we have 9 p.m. Not every night, but some nights, maybe every night. As long as you guys are enjoying it, I will keep doing it. Stephen Rubin is saying, I've been thinking about how life begins at 75. Actually, I think Greg believes that life begins at 55. So your life began 20 years ago, Mr. Rubin. I hope you're enjoying it. Today is World Health Day. Well, it doesn't matter whether you're 75, 65, 55. We will bring it on, Mr. Bob Farnham. It is a day to celebrate not just our health, not just health in general, but of course all our healthcare workers, everybody that keeps us healthy in any way, shape or form. Anne is here. What fun life. Exactly. We've got Bring It On and What Fun Life. I feel like it's a game of Pictionary. I'll just have to dyslexia, jumble up the words and figure out what comes next. Well, let's get on with the show. A little bit of an update because I know that you guys care deeply about the Jaffe coin. The Jaffe coin is $2.52 and holding firm for those of you looking to buy into the Jaffe economy, the Jaffe currency. It is fun. It is fun. And I will keep you up to date, just like my weight. Hopefully my weight goes down and the Jaffe coin goes up. I like that. So Gregg Lunceford is my guest tonight, and you know what? I'm really glad that Sharice Conan Johnson is not on at 9 o'clock tomorrow night because I need to go to sleep. I just feel these days are amazing. They're long, they're joyous, but I need to go to bed early tomorrow night. So she will be on at our usual time of 12 noon, and I hope you can join me then. And I just want to mention that on Friday, we do the week that was, our breakfast show, our wrap-up show, and an old friend of the show who just had a book come out is going to be my co-host. I won't tell you who his name is, but his book does talk about being a recovering douchebag. So that might give you a little bit of a clue as to who the guest is going to be. But enough about him. Let's focus on Gregg Lunceford. Dr. Gregg Lunceford, a certified financial planner, just a really fascinating man who's going to talk to us about this whole idea of 21st century transitions, rethinking retirement, rethinking about life and about the transitions that we go through in life. It is a discussion that's certainly needed. In 231 interviews, we needed to have it. And we're going to have it tonight. Yes, Manif, of course, it's Joey. Joey will be on the show. And Anne says Annika is watching too. Annika is not of legal drinking age, so I will make sure that any sips of wine happen off camera. How about that? Well, let's do birthdays. We've got Mr. Mark Samuels, Dr. Mark Samuels, Andre Barnard, Sean Melnick. Who else? Aubrey Miller, Kim Myson, David Tates, and then finally on LinkedIn, Mr. Drax Africa. I'm not sure if that's his last name, but if it is, well done. Your last name is a continent. Patrick Lee and Sandy Elaine. Alain. Happy birthday to you guys. Well, I think it's time to get into our seated soliloquy. And of course, we're going to be discussing the subject at hand. I call this one, Life Begins at. Retirement is a loaded word, and it is both literally and figuratively a generational concept. Your parents' idea of retirement is very different to your grandparents', and it's most likely very different to yours. The events of the past 12 months have most likely turned everyone's idea of an ideal retirement age and scenario on its proverbial head. In a perfect world, we'd be living longer and retiring earlier, right? I'm not so sure. I do know that the opposite scenario kind of sucks, but surely there's a happy medium. People are living longer, but are they also working longer? Are they working harder? Are they working smarter? My guest tonight is on a mission to reimagine retirement, and I love his Life Begins at 50 gauntlet he's throwing our way. Personally, I'm not sure how I feel about retirement. I know I need to save for it. I know that when times get tough, as they are now, the goalposts seem to shift out. But then again, isn't that a metaphor for life? I know that when people do it voluntarily, it's typically a good thing, but when it's forced or forced on you, it's typically a bad thing. From sports to business, I don't think anyone wants to attend their own retirement party. Aging out is one of my worst phrases in the whole world, and well, ageism is equally awful. At the young age of 50, I'm determined to be a voice for those who feel like they've been forced into a corner, regardless of their age. Like I said, I'm not sure how I feel about retirement itself, but there's another word beginning with an R that I do know how I feel about, and that's regret. Age is relative, and you're only as young as you feel. Young at heart should be all of us, unless, of course, the heart does not cooperate. So whether you retire at 55, 60, 65, or work until the day you die, if you lived every day like it was your only day, like it was your last day, with a smile on your face, with purpose, passion, and spirit, then retirement is just an arbitrary word that doesn't own you, define you, or do anything other than just usher in the next wonderful, glorious, and fulfilling phase in your long and meaningful life. Well, now it's time to talk to someone who certainly is an expert, Dr. Gregg Lunceford, and a little bit of a background on him. Dr. Gregg Lunceford is a practitioner and scholar in the field of retirement. He received his PhD in management from Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland, Ohio, where he conducted research on 21st century retirement transitions. He also holds an MBA from Washington University in St. Louis, Missouri, and a BBA from Loyola University of Chicago. He's going to have to tell me how I did on that pronunciation. Dr. Lunceford completed financial planning studies at Northwestern University and is a certified financial planner. He's a practicing wealth advisor at Mesirow Financial, which is an 80-year-old financial service firm headquartered in Chicago. At Mesirow, Gregg works with high net worth individuals, professionals, athletes, business owners, and nonprofit organizations. Please join me in welcoming him to the show. Mr. Dr. Gregg Lunceford, welcome.
Good evening, Joseph. Thank you for having me.
So, how the hell did I do on Loyola?
Well, you did very well. They made it to the Sweet 16, so I think more people know how to pronounce our name now. So we had the the wonderful experience of upsetting a 1 seed in the University of Illinois. No offense to my friends out there from the University of Illinois. So we had an exciting season, and hopefully more people know how to pronounce it as well.
Well, there you go. Well, at least one person is trying hard. Well, looking at some of the comments, and I see a quick drive by the philosopher. So we've got a doctor and a philosopher, Mr. Tom Morris. Tom, get yourself a cup of coffee or a glass of wine. Don't go anywhere. It is good to see you. He's keeping me on my toes while he prepares for a snooze. It is good to have the whole gang present. And I see Maria Bailey is here. She said, great guest. I hope it's not too late for me. It's never too late. It's 5 o'clock somewhere, right? I mean, it's actually 6 o'clock in LA. Maria is going to be a guest on the show coming up. And wow, she's just incredible. So we can look forward to her coming on the show as well. But Gregg, we've got a lot to cover. And one of the things that we do on the show is we try and embarrass our guests just slightly by digging up deep, dark, dirty secrets from their past. Well, actually, not bad at all. Here's something we learned about you, which is one of your favorite childhood moments was meeting Walter Payton. And I think he was diving over you at the time. I'm not sure what you were doing on the field, but talk a little bit about why, you know, when I ask people about these moments when they're, you know, coming on the show, for me, there are two things that are fascinating, even more so than the event itself, right? One is, why did they pick this out of one or two or three events? And two is, what is the connection? What did they learn? You know, what is the bridge between that moment and who they became and who they are right now? So let's start off with, let's talk about the moment, like meeting Walter Payton. Why was it so important to you?
Well, because it was totally unexpected. When I was in elementary school, my dad used to take us to the auto show in Chicago. I'm from Chicago every year, and it was Walter Payton's second season, and he at that point in time was endorsing Buick, and so everybody was coming to the Buick platform because Walter was going to come out and say a few words. And he came out of the bathroom in a crowd. He was standing behind me. I didn't see him. I was actually maybe in third, fourth grade at the time, and this crowd started, overwhelming crowd started to rush towards him. And so he looks at my dad and says, "Can I borrow your kid?" And my father shook his head and said yes. And Walter picked me up and walked through this crowd and said, I would love to sign all the autographs right now. I'll do some later, but I'm carrying this young man right now. My hands are full. And so he took me in the back, and then he wrote me a personal note and introduced me to his wife. And I had this autograph to take to school the next day, and I was the man. So it was one of those memories that will always stick with me, meeting the great Walter Payton.
The great Walter Payton used you as a prop.
I was used as a prop, and I gladly did it.
You were collateral damage. No, I mean it's a great story, and it's stuck with you obviously for all of these years. When you look back, what is the connection when you think about who you are today? You know, as a parent, as a professional, is there a lesson, a learning, an insight from that moment that you carry with you to this day?
Well, the thing that I thought was really cool, and I carry with me to this day, because there are a lot of celebrities out there that aren't nice, correct? And he was extremely kind afterwards, and he introduced me to his wife and his family, and he gave me as much time as I needed. And so I always felt that from his example, what you should be is you should be kind to people. You should be appreciative. And even though, he could have stopped and signed 500 autographs at that moment, I respect the fact that they're everyday people, and he was exhausted at the time. He had been signing autographs all day. But rather than say something that would turn a fan off, he pivoted in the moment and looked for a way to acknowledge his fans, but also get to his family and get to his next engagement in a way that his fans would not be be angry about. He respected the fact that those were the fans that cheered him on, cheered the Bears on, made him who he was, bought tickets to go to the games. And so what I learned from that is there is a way that you approach things. And even though you cannot give as much as you want in the moment, you have to show people the respect that you are acknowledging them and that they are important.
I mean, wow. I mean, talk about a slam dunk. I know that I've mixed sporting metaphors there, but there is so much depth in that example, because you're right. I mean, he could have been rude. He could have. How many times have we met celebrities or people in our lives, and they're just disrespectful? And what he actually was able to do is, I was thinking of the phrase humankind, right? Human and kind, they kind of go together, don't they? He was just being human. He was tired. He was exhausted. And what he was actually able to do was not just use you as a prop, but give you a memory that you kept with you for the rest of your life, and actually not offend or upset or hurt even one fan. So that's a great story. Here's another shadow, I suppose, that you've maybe lived in or had to live up to, and that is the fact that I had to find an interesting image in terms of the fact that you're a pastor's kid. I mean, it's quite clear from listening to you, your gentle voice, that you've grown up in the company and the presence of giants, no doubt, positive influences. What was it like growing up as a pastor's kid, and likewise, how has that, certainly, I mean, I would think obviously, but how has that formed you into the man that you are today?
Well, I think it's definitely one of those things you have more appreciation for in your adulthood than you have in your childhood. In your childhood is more of you have pastors' kids have to have the image that that is almost perfect. At least that's how you feel, correct? Because um, your parent is pastoring to other families and trying to help them raise their families, and we're supposed to be the family that leads by example in our community. And sometimes, you want to express yourself in certain ways, and you have the same challenges as every other kid. And sometimes you're asked to suppress some of those emotions, at least in public. Wait till you get home, and you just want to live out being a kid. So I can't say it was a horrible experience, but it was pressure at times. However, as you go into adulthood, you realize what your family was about, and what you are now starting, for me, to view as very important is what it is to serve humanity. And so you come to realize as an adult that your parents weren't asking you just to put on an act or whatever. They were teaching you how to show leadership. And through that leadership, it was to serve humanity, to think of others first, to figure out a way to help those the least of these, as it would be said in the faith. And that's important because through small acts and gestures, we ourselves can find purpose as well as give hope.
Totally. And I mean, I was thinking, obviously as a parent as well, that how much of our lives do we say to our kids, "You'll understand this when you're older, right?" And they do, and they will, but they can't. It's just not possible sometimes as a kid to appreciate those moments. And it's amazing, this idea of how you look back now and realize the grounding, the privilege, the platform, but it's just difficult, I guess. It's difficult. It's difficult when you're the kid, and it's difficult when you're the parent, and you want to just have them understand. You wish they could almost glimpse into the future and see that moment, and then understand why you do the things you do and say the things that you say.
Right. You definitely appreciate it later, but in the moment, when you want to go play with your friends, and your parents are telling you you have to sing in the choir, because if the pastor's kids don't sing in the choir, then no one else's kids will sing in the choir. You become resentful of those exercises. But on the other hand, I grew up with so many wonderful friends and family that I'm still close to today. As an adult, I appreciate it. And as a child, having to, live up to certain standards because you, in some cases, were the standard is a little bit tough, but it teaches you how to be accountable. It teaches you how to set goals, and it teaches you how to work hard. So.
Well, obviously, one goal we're going to talk about is the goal of reaching retirement and retirement age. But before we do that, I didn't mention to you when I saw in your bio that my daughter is actually at school at WashU in St. Louis. So
Go
there's a
Bears.
yeah, another bear, right? I mean, you just follow the
Absolutely.
bears everywhere, don't you?
We're everywhere. No, I really enjoyed my time in St. Louis. Think very well of the university. Visit from time to time. Still am a very active alumnus, and it was some of the best years of my life. Speaking about being that pastor's kid, it was the first time I got to live away from my family, and to find who I wanted to be as an adult and what values I wanted to keep on my own. And what I learned in St. Louis is that a lot of those values that I grew up with stuck with me. However, I learned it's important for everyone to be able to express themselves in their own way.
I mean, I still remember when we toured, my daughter and I, that as you know, one of the mantras of the school is know every student by name and by story. And that, that Midwestern commitment and approach, that kindness, that neighborly culture, it really was evident and present in visiting the campus for the first time, and quite frankly, her entire experience. She's a sophomore and loves it.
Yeah, and I think that's true of the culture of the school. I mean, one of the reasons I'm such a big fan is when I started my career, and once you leave a university, you think that's just the end of the experience. But whenever the dean from my college visited my employer, either he sought me out to find me in the building of the bank that I started my career in, or left his business card there. And most schools and most of the, especially beyond the professors, you don't really have a relationship with your dean or your chancellor or whatever. And then for them to seek you out in your professional career, especially early in your career, I wasn't like I was at the stage of my career where I could write the university a big check. I thought that was really special.
Now, Glenn is here, even though he said he was boycotting the show because it was too late for him. As we've moved to 9 o'clock, at least temporarily, he does like the microphone as well. I thought you might. It's very industrial. I like the microphone. And I was talking to someone today, and they were saying the big trend right now is radio-like appearances, even in video. So I'm kind of enjoying it. And Anne said, people from the middle, often the kindest. This is wonderful. But let's get into, the irony, of course, if you think about it, Gregg, is your career has focused on something where typically people are slowed down at, or forced to stop, or told that they're transitioning into something else. And the irony, of course, is if I was to wish you anything, which I of course do, is a long, extended, elongated post-retirement career, even though you focus on retirement. But but I would love for you to tell people your story, because it's an amazing story that led you down ultimately what became a curiosity, a fascination, and a research track, that took you through and into your doctorate and into this specific area of focus, which I just find fascinating.
Yeah, so I discovered my passion as a practitioner. Um, and my passion is understanding and helping people make retirement transitions. In financial services, we tend to think of retirement planning from a financial aspect. And that's what it was up until maybe 2 or 3 decades ago. When people prepared for retirement, basically what you did, it was really more of an exercise of financial readiness, more so than an exercise of retirement planning. And basically what you were doing is you were trying to figure out if you had enough money to last the rest of your life. That was pretty much the exercise. I am going to stop working. I think my longevity is X. Will I have enough money through in the form of a pension or Social Security or whatever the entitlement plan is in the country that you live in, plus my savings? Um, and so in our industry, at least and when I came in the industry, we were taught and led to believe that retirement, and I say retirement because there's just not a word to replace it. A lot of people hate the word retirement. It has a negative connotation to it for a lot of people, and the root word is retire. I mean, it's tired. It's tired. I'm sorry, and that's what retirement was when it first started. It meant that people were tired. They had physical jobs we were in the industrial age, and before that, there was the farming. Farming was the main driver of the economy, and so by the time a person got to be 40 and definitely 50, their back hurt, their hands hurt, they had arthritis, and by the time they got to their 60s, they were worn out. They were just tired, and so they just wanted to stop work. And so my story is coming off of the Great Recession of after 2008, where real estate busted. I started getting people who walked in the door of the financial institution I worked for at the time, who got great severance packages offered to them from their company. I mean, and they would say, well, I want to do some retirement planning. They asked me to retire. Here's a great deal. And it was like, I don't know what I'm going, if I can retire or not. We would sit down and we would run the numbers the first meeting. You can afford to do this. And as a matter of fact, if you do it right, not only you won't have worries, but your children won't have worries. And that still didn't give people comfort. They went to the next meeting, they came back, they requested another meeting, and we would go through this drill again. And we get to the third meeting, and then finally what they would say is, I know I can afford to retire. My problem is I don't know what to do with myself. And so in this process, we were wondering why this person was not making this decision to come work with us as a financial institution. And we thought, hey, maybe the problem is they're talking to other financial institutions, and we need to give them an incentive just to make the leap and come and work with us. And so we would discount our pricing, and we discount the pricing, and the client still wouldn't move. The prospect still wouldn't become a client. And this conversation would go on for several months until I went to my company and I said, you know, there's something wrong with our clients. There's a behavior or something that's bothering them that we need to understand better. We keep offering this financial incentive in the form of we discount our fees to make it more affordable for them. We confirm they won't run out of money. I know we believe that that money can be the trigger here, but there's something else going on, and I need to figure this out. And you know, the kind of the response I got was, it's not like you can build a financial product that addresses a social emotional need. And so we hear you, but that's not something we're going to dig in on. And so I took it upon myself just to go back to graduate school and study what are and put together studies with my doctoral committee that help me understand and help others who can pick up my research and build off of it, understand what is the experience that a person goes through when they are making the transition decision. There's lots of literature out there about how people live in retirement, and even in that data and that research, it's a little bit interesting because it's studied through the lens, at least when I was picking up my studies. Maybe I think some people have come along behind that and maybe have added to the literature in that space, but it was really looked through in the lens of gerontology. And so it was really studying how people behaved in retirement as they transitioned to become older. It really wasn't about how people thought about it or what factors or what fears they encountered as they were going through this period. And so what I learned from my studies were a few things that I could share with you. But that's how I got there. Is just I wanted to be a better advisor to my clients. I felt as though that there was something unsettled in them, and that to really have a great relationship with them was not just to understand their financial concerns, but to understand their entire well-being. And that if you understood their entire well-being, you could really help them be successful in their transition.
I mean, you're sounding like me. You're sounding like a marketer. I love that because you've thought about a bigger picture, and many people that have been part of the show for the last year um, know that I came up with a framework that I call PBEC. That stands for Product Brand Experience Community. And in many respects, the argument is always the same, which is the problem is that most brands or campaigns or even challenges just focus on the transactional benefit, right? The functional benefit,
Right.
which is the P, which is what age and how much money. Then there is the B, which is the emotional benefit, and in this case, maybe more anxiety and negative emotions, right?
Correct.
And also self worth and what am I going to do with my life? Am I just going to end up on the beach? Or I mean, it seems like there are a lot of generalizations and stereotypes and outdated or old fashioned ways of thinking. But then there's the E, which stands for, and you said the word, experience. And then the C stands for community. When you actually connect the dots and you come together and you work with each other and you feed and you support one another. And I think in a way, what you've done is you've also made this phenomenal transition from P and B to E and C.
And that's the goal. And you said it exactly right. People have struggled with this transition, and I think it's hard for others to understand. Now everyone doesn't struggle with this transition. There's still some people that, that traditional way of retiring is perfect for them. They're going to walk out of the office one day and never want to turn around, and that's good. All I'm saying is that's not true for everyone. And we have come to believe, and it made more sense when people retired very much closer from, expired much closer to the time they retired, which is basically people got to 65 and they looked at their longevity and they said, I'm looking at my family health history, and if I'm lucky, I'll make it to mid 70s, but somewhere in the next 5 years, most likely, and if I'm lucky, maybe in the next 10 years, um, my life expectancy will end. My life will end. And so what came up was this concept of a bucket list. And what retirement was, you made this long list of things you wish you could do. Ski in certain ski on certain mountains,
How about that
vacation
one?
in certain parts of the world, spend time. You make this long list of these things you wanted to do, and you prayed that you got to complete all of them before some illness caught you, whether it was dementia or the arthritis in your hands from when you were banging the hammer in the plant, got to the point where it was too painful for you to use your hands, or it wasn't comfortable to sit on the seat of the airplane anymore. You were just praying you got everything done on this list. And so there was really this transition from middle age to old age, and then you die. And so now we're living much longer lives. I mean, to make it to 90 for a female is very easy. For a male is easy, not as easy as females, but it's definitely easy and achievable, right? And so I look at the tables that we look at when we're calculating required minimum distributions. These are the distributions you're required to take out of your IRA, so the government can tax some of the savings that you put away for retirement on an untaxed basis over your career. And the tables, the actuarial tables, project you living to about 90 years old. And so if we're looking at living to 90 and we retire in our 60s, we're closer to middle age than we are old age. But because of ageism, people still treat people in their above 50 as if they're entering into old age. And so there is this new phase that most people don't know about, that it is mentioned in some academic literature, and it's called the third age. And this represents this space where you don't transition from middle age to old age, but you transition to this space in this third age where these are the best years of your life. And then you transition to old age. And why are they the best years of your life? Well, tell me what other part of your life or what other stage in your life where you are healthy, you're wiser than you ever have been. You've fulfilled all your commitments to other people, meaning you've raised your family, or if you had aging parents, you've taken care of whatever obligations you have to them. You uh, have fulfilled any obligations you have to your community. You're financially in a better shape than you've ever been in your life, and that doesn't mean that everyone is financially perfect, but you definitely have skills that allow you to earn more than you did when you had your paper route when you were 12. And so what better phase in life is there where all you have to be concerned about is what you find fulfilling, and you're still healthy enough to do it for a long time? You can do this for about 20 or 30 years. And so it's not something that should be looked at negatively. It should be something that is celebrated and people are excited about. But in order to understand um, how to make it the best part of your life, you have to have an action plan going into it. And when you are looking at retirement planning solely through a financial lens, you know you can afford certain things, but you haven't decided who you want to be, uh, how you want to build a legacy for yourself, what activities you find fun. You haven't made this choice for you. And what I found from my research is for a lot of people, this is difficult simply because it is one of the first independent decisions they've ever made in their life.
Hmm.
And that's going to sound a little bit interesting, but when you look at baby boomers and the generation that came before them, a lot of them entered into careers that maybe their parents picked for them. These are socially acceptable careers. It wasn't like things are today where someone can drop out of Harvard and go put together a computer company out of their garage. I mean, you may have been told your father is this profession and therefore you should be this profession. And so what I find very interesting when I interview people about this retirement transition and ask them what they want to do in this stage of their life, and they think about all the personal freedom that they can have in doing it, they come up with some of the most interesting things I would have never picked. I mean, you will have people who are judges or chief of staff in hospitals come out and say, I want to start a rock band. I want to write mystery novels. I want to, for whatever reason, a lot of people want to work at Disney World. That's the one I don't get. But they say they want to work at Disney World because you're around kids and you could be a kid all day. Now, that was 12 months ago. I don't know how they feel about it now. But I question in some cases if some people really suppress the things that they really wanted to do because they were unacceptable careers. And now at this stage in life, you could actually go convert a hobby into a next act. You can do it on your own terms. You can go and pursue an interest you have and convert it into a next act. And you can finish your life without any regrets.
They say that, I mean, certainly over the last 12 months, that the advice for a lot of people was that your side hustle becomes your main hustle. Or
Absolutely.
I was thinking, like, when you were going through all these examples, I'll be like, how about starting a daily streaming video show at the age of 50 and becoming a talk show host? But I love this liberation, this empowerment, this ability to, I mean, it's such a fascinating concept that this could very well be one of the first independent. I mean, I even when I think about my life, Greg, you do the things that you think you're supposed to do.
That's right.
And even, for me, whether it's going from high school into college into a job, you do the things because you think that there is an expectation, whether it's from parents, whether it's from Pastor Lunceford, or whether it's from yourself. Sometimes you can be your own worst enemy. And now suddenly the kids are, the kids have graduated from college, or almost going through college, and now you can actually sit down and say, what do I want to do for me?
That's right. And so one of the things I mentioned, and you touched on it, one of the things I mentioned in my book is there is this conflict in all of us between our actual self and our ideal self. Our actual self is who we are. I'm Greg. I am the banker. This is who I am. My ideal self, and this is what people have to think about as they go into this next stage, is ideally, who do I want to be? And there is this conflict. There's a healthy conflict between who you actually are and who you want to be. But if there's a great distance between who you are and who you ideally want to be, that creates regret, which can create depression, anxiety, and other things. And so you have to close this gap. The hard part is something happens. Think about it. When you were in middle school, people started to ask you, what do you want to do as a profession? And then you get to high school and you have a counselor, and then you get to college, you have a counselor, and then you take your first job, and they put you in a training program, and then they assign a mentor to you, and people are constantly asking you, what do you want to do next, grooming you through your career if you're fortunate enough to have a mentor to bring you along. And then about age 50, people stop asking you what you want to do next. And so it's difficult for people to make this transition because they've had people who have had a lived experience help them as they form their identity and how they act out that identity daily. But once you get to a certain age, either your mentor is now gone, they've left and gone to do other things, or they're no longer. And so when it comes to making this transition, late stage career transition into this thing that is questionable if we still should call retirement because we're not tired anymore. But to that point, a lot of people struggle with it because one, they have to make the decision independently, and in most cases, because of ageism, is irreversible. If I give up my senior level role in the organization, I can't come back 6 months from now and say, you know what, I made the wrong choice. Can I have my old job back? It's gone. Right. So it is a lot of stress. It is a lot of pressure. It is a lot of anxiety. What I try to do is help people understand this so they can figure out what action plans they want to put in place that go beyond just finances.
So I've got a whole bunch of things in my mind. Again, as a marketing guy, I'm a little self-deprecating at the best of times, which is I say I get paid for the acronym or for the or for the tagline. But I figured we need a new word. So how about this one? How about refinement, right? As in, instead of retirement, we call it refinement. Getting fired up again,
Absolutely.
getting ready to dedicate. I had Daniel Gutierrez on the show, and he literally burnt all of his awards and certificates and degrees, being a successful life coach and speaker, and he moved to Peru, and now he conducts these retreats for executives, takes them to Machu Picchu, and he still does coaching and speaking. But I actually said, Daniel, you didn't have a midlife crisis. You had a midlife rebirth, a midlife awakening, a midlife liberation. And if it's true that life begins at 55, if it's true that we're living longer, if it's true that we actually need to start asking people, when they retire, what are you going to do next? What now? This is just a stepping stone, right?
That's right, Joseph. And what I found is when I interviewed people and conducted studies, people felt like they had to make a binary choice. Either they were in the workforce or they were out of the workforce. They didn't want to be fully in the workforce and work 40 plus hours a week, nor did they want to be out of the workforce and disconnected from the things that they found valuable. Work provides a lot of value. The problem is early in our career, our main driver is the financial value that work provides to us. And that's how we solely think about it. And I think that's how we get into this. Once I get to the point where most people get to the point where they financially can disconnect, they will do it. It's not until we get to that 50 plus stage where we recognize that work has value beyond financial measure, that work actually provides you with an identity. It gives you're known for doing something well. You're known for having the show and being a good host on the show, just like others are known for being a great teacher or a great firefighter or whatever. You are respected among your peers and within your community. The second thing is work gives you structure. No matter if you have a horrible job and you hate it, at least work tells you what you like and you don't like. It gives you a reason to get out of bed every morning. It gives you a place to go that you can set goals and and positively grow once you accomplish them. So there are a lot of benefits to work beyond financial measure. So people don't necessarily want to fully exit out of the workforce. What they really want is to be able to define work on their terms, now that they have on their own terms, now that they have these freedoms of their own. The problem is there is this disconnect between employees and their employers. Okay. An employer may say, hey, there is a lot of value that I have in the knowledge base of some of my older employees. I would like to keep them around. I would really like to offer them an opportunity to maybe just come in as consultants, cut back some of their hours, and be a mentor to younger workers. However, if an employer approaches an employee with that idea, the employer could be accused of trying to push them out of the workforce, and there could be legal repercussions for that. On the other hand, as I talk to individuals that had this idea, that's what I really like to do. Oftentimes, especially in tough economic times, they do not want to. They're afraid to approach their employer with, "Hey, I have an offer for you, and this is going to be good for you, and it's going to be good for me. It's going to be good for the company because I am going." So, for instance, I had someone successfully do this. They went to their employer. They felt as though they wanted to re refire, to use your term, and what they said is, "Look, this is what I want to do. I want to mentor my successor. I am going to give them all of my direct reports, but I want to keep my title. I want to come in 3 days a week and mentor my successor over a 3-year period, and you can use me to do other projects on a consulting basis. I want you to sponsor me 1 day a week to go do nonprofit work for a non-for-profit because I want to give back to my community. And then that 5th day of the week is my day of leisure." And so this person was able to negotiate terms that were good for them, good for the company, and good for the younger people that would succeed him in his role. However, a lot of people are afraid to approach their employer with that because the employer could make them feel as though it's a binary choice. And if you say, I want to give you fewer hours, that could be interpreted as I'm less committed to you. And the next round of layoffs, you're first on the list. And so there's just this disconnect. I think there's value that can be achieved on both sides. But because where we are, unless you have a really, really good relationship with your employer, your manager, and the other people at the firm, it is very hard for a lot of people to suggest what really would be ideal for them.
But let me tell you, I mean, these are, I was jotting down We need to negotiate terms of our refinement. But the fact is, this shouldn't be on us. It shouldn't be on the worker. This should be on HR. This should be on corporations. And right now, when every aspect of what is work is being rethought in this new hybrid reality, in this remote reality where people don't even necessarily want to go back to work in person, where people are questioning these cube farms and these commutes, these endless commutes. The whole concept of talent is being rethought. The whole concept of work is being rethought. And the key to the future of work and corporations may very well be, in the hands of what I call the silver-haired executives. So I think it's admirable. I think it's phenomenal, the proactive negotiation. But every single executive at every single major corporation should be, and I'm not saying this gratuitously, should be buying your book and should be learning how to bring these negotiation terms, to their workforce as opposed to waiting for their workforce to bring it to them.
Well, I would love for everyone to buy my book, and I think not about the book, but I think you're right about this. The encouraging thing about the last 12 months, as challenging as they have been, is that we are put in a position where we have to re-examine work and the structure of work, and we were forced into a situation where we had to use technology and learn to work remotely. But from that, I think what a lot of companies have come to understand is they now understand that this can be done and that you can allow flexibility. And when you do allow that flexibility, you actually get more productivity, and you're also able to keep people engaged and loyal to you longer. And that creates a better experience for companies as well as their clients and customers. So I am encouraged by this period. I think a lot can come out of this that is for the good. And let's wait and see what happens. And I encourage everyone to think about what is their next plan, what it is you really want to do. Don't look at it in terms of, here are a couple of options within the company and I got to pick A, B, and C. Try to design what you think is right. And if your current employer doesn't take you up on that offer, there may be someone else that may take you up on that offer. But you have to pursue what is right for you in order to thrive.
I absolutely love it. And by the way, Anne said, I plan to purchase your book for my daughter. She needs to learn from wonderful humans. Her daughter is young. So this is there is a net present value of this book, no doubt. So there you go. You've already made one sale. But I love it.
Thank you, man.
I found this quote. I always find one quote for my guests, and I didn't. I guess I'm going to need you to interpret it for me. You don't need to guess who said it because the answer is unknown. But this is the quote: "You have to put off being young until you can retire."
I don't think that's true anymore.
Well, that's why I found the quote for you.
I don't think that's true anymore. You could be young through a number of stages, and transitioning. Once you transition from your primary career, that may include some form of work. And I would argue for many people, because it keeps them engaged, it keeps them stimulated. That's what makes them young.
Right, and I mean, of course, the catch in that quote is the same reason that you can be young at heart, right? That you
Correct.
can what is youth and age are not necessarily the same thing. At least to be young in heart, in spirit, in mind, in attitude, in zest for life, and even that bucket list items. Those bucket list items. It's great to be able to achieve them when you refire or retire, but the reality is that it should just be, and I think that's why you've coined the term, right? Or at least focus on it. 21st century transition. It's a transition. And this concept of I mean, I'm absolutely loving it, this idea of the third age.
Well, and that's right. It is a transition. Retirement used to be an event. You said, "Hey, I'm out of here." They said, "Let's have a party." That was the event, and you went home and you checked off your you disconnected. You completely disconnected, and you checked off your bucket list if you were lucky enough to do it. A retirement is now a process, and we go through this process where we disconnect. So there are two ways you can retire. The first one is when you physically leave the building, but that just means you're physically gone. Psychologically, you may still yearn for something that gives you purpose every day. So full retirement is when you physically and psychologically, socially, emotionally are ready just to do nothing. And I don't think that a person in their 60s who is now middle age is just ready just to do nothing. I think that most people want to find a way to do something meaningful for them, but it has to be on their terms. And when their identity is so tied to their work, they would like to preserve that identity. They just don't want to work 60 hours a week anymore. So here's the opportunity to convert um, who you are and what you are to do it the way you want to do it. So I think of a gentleman that I interviewed who was a very well-known and high-powered attorney. And he basically said, because a lot of law firms have mandatory retirement age. He had exceeded the mandatory retirement age. And he says, but I'm still good at what I do. I'm still bringing business to the firm. And they said, okay, you can stay. And then they came up again. They extended the mandatory retirement age again. And they said, you can't do it again. And he's like, if I go home and I just sit around all day and do nothing, I'll die. So he said, can you, until I turn age 65, um, pay part of my salary for me to be in-house counsel for a non-for-profit, and then you can write this off. And they did that. And at the time I met him, he wanted an extension at age 75, and he could not come to terms. So I think a lot of people, if you were to pull their professional identity or their identity in their community or however they find identity away from them, at the time you disconnect them from the socialization of work, their friends, you disconnect them from the psychological success that they get from work, being able to accomplish things and do good. If they believe that their work is for something good, it's not a healthy process, and we have to figure out how to reposition ourselves. One thing I like to throw in there, this is necessary, and we talked a little bit earlier about how does it benefit corporations? The reality is that until last few years, the boomer cohort was the largest cohort in the workforce. I mean, they were taken over by the millennial cohort a couple of years ago. But the reality is, if you pushed all boomers out of the workforce, you would not have enough workers. So there's a percentage of the boomer cohort that is going to have to remain, and it is to the economy's advantage to figure out how to structure and redefine terms that are comfortable to keep the people who have long intellectual capital, have great relationships that still can be leveraged for the advancement of business and commerce, to keep them in the workforce.
Well, I feel I feel like I say this a lot these days, but this was like a masterclass in refinement from Dr. Gregg Lunceford. Gregg, the book is called Exit from Work. What will the new you look like? And I've put a link to that in the comments below. There are a couple of more things as well, which is, that's what I wanted to show. That was last night's show. You've done a couple of podcasts as well, and if you want to chat about them, I'll also put the two banners up. But you've done two. I think one of them is the Career Pivot show, and there's the link. And then the other one is the Wealthy Life podcast as well. And so we want to direct you if you it's like Amazon, right? If you love this book, then you'll love that book. If you loved his interview on the show tonight, then you're going to love listening to him on these two podcasts. You can connect with him on LinkedIn, although, you know, Greg, we got to do something about this, about that URL. How many Gregg Lunsfords are there?
I don't think I think I'm one of a kind, or at least I like to be. So if you just put that in the search engine, my first and last name in the search engine at LinkedIn, I'm sure you'll find me easily.
If you know someone who works at LinkedIn, please tell them to get hold of Dr. Gregg Lunceford to shorten his URL, because people need to find him very easily. But you can find him very easily on Instagram, on Twitter. Greg, I loved you coming in tonight. I love the fact that you came in at 9 o'clock at night or 8 o'clock in Chicago. I appreciated your guest number 232 in this crazy squiggly journey of mine. I think we're going to jump into maybe the after show and do a little bit of just a meet and greet for those people that feel like spending 5 or 10 minutes with us, if that's okay, Greg.
Sounds great.
All right. Well, the one thing we do on the show is if we've had a good guest, we go to Chuck Norris himself. And Chuck Norris tells us whether we had a winner or not a winner. But there's no doubt that Greg, when Chuck Norris is concerned and when you're concerned, this is what he has to say.
You are Chuck Norris approved.
Let's head on over to the Zoom after show. Take care, everyone. And I will be back tomorrow at 12 noon. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching the show about hope, positivity, optimism, and if there's time left over, a little bit of marketing with your host, multiple author, and global keynote speaker, Joseph Jaffe. If you like the show, tell a friend or two. Please subscribe to the show. And if you want to get inside news, previews of upcoming guests, and much more, visit josephjaffe.com/subscribe to sign up for the show's newsletter.
And despite the best ministrations of your wife, you still look ugly.